Hidden Object Guru here, joined by...
The Gun Wrangler.
For more Viscera cleanup detail. A game I have been missing while you have been up in the Arctic.
Yeah,
Right,
I missed it too because it's just a chore when,
Trying to do it alone is always frustrating. Yeah. Uh-oh.
Literally a chore.
Yeah. I gotta get a bucket because we gotta clear out this hallway immediately. Lest it, There we go. You have to clear out the hallway immediately or we wind up taking,
like 19
tracking...
hours.
Oh, no. I actually tried something once, and this is how badly... I found out how badly this game can go. So I'm like, I'm going to worry about the blood stains on the floor later, right? I'm just going to go, I'm going to grab all of the items, I'm going to move them all into the right places, and then when we're done, I'll clean up the marks on the floor. Yeah. I thought, hey, great plan. There's one problem with that plan, though. Every footstep you put down gets added as an entirely new instance, even if it's already on top of a bloody footprint. And as a consequence, when I was done doing it, I had footprints I had to run down that were, and this is speaking conservatively, 200 footprints deep. And you might think, well, the mop can pick all of that up at once. No, it can't. It has to get basically all of those individually. So what I'm saying is, clean the floors first, then clean everything, then come back and clean the floors again, because you're going to have made a big old mess when you were cleaning up everything else. It's a game that has issues. I love it, but it has issues.
Yep, like Vampire Bloodlines,
it's got its own distinct problems.
Tragic masterpiece.
I would say, yeah. And again, although this one, as I keep saying, its problems are easier to fix than Vampire Bloodlines, because, of course, there are 50 other games like this about cleaning places that have already solved the issues that this game has. And this game is just, not updating to deal with them. Or maybe they're saving it for the sequel. That's like... The problem with this game, and I love it, but the problem with this game is it's largely, rather than attempting to be a fully featured game, it's largely just, a parody joke game for people. And that's fine, but it's like, you also have the potential to be a truly great game if you would just have clear objectives and track them for the audience. That's all you would have to do, and this would be a great game. But I say this every time. We're here to talk about a show as well, and that show is...
Cobra Kai.
So, how familiar were you with The Karate Kid?
Not very, I'll be honest.
Had you ever seen it, or is it just cultural familiarity?
It's mostly just cultural familiarity, and that's about it.
Okay, so if you had seen it, it's so long ago you don't remember any details.
Yeah.
So all of the flashbacks to the original do not have a ton of resonance for you because you didn't watch it back in the day, and you're like, oh, this is so weird seeing these dudes as kids.
Yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it.
I gotta say, I'm very intrigued to hear your take on the show then, because as a fan of the series from back in the day, I watched, I've only seen Karate Kid, I think, once. But I owned Karate Kid 2, and I've seen that any number of times. So I'm very familiar with the series and the characters and everything. And so I was excited for this to come back and see how the characters had changed and grown and, what the future holds for all of it. Like, it was a fun follow-up. But, sorry about that. For you, do you know where the furnace is? It's
here.
Right over there. Yes.
I've been cleaning a path to it.
Nice. Merci beaucoup. Well, yeah, for you, someone who's never seen this, who has no background with this series, I'm very interested to see your take. So yes, in case people haven't seen it, it was a YouTube TV show. That's right. YouTube makes TV shows. A lot of people don't know
until
that. Yes.
YouTube Red went entirely bankrupt and was shuffled under a rug.
Yeah, no, they're just pretending that didn't happen. See, the problem with YouTube, and I do pity them a little for this, is it's like, when you've spent 14 or 13 years having people come to your website and just watch stuff for free, suddenly saying you have to pay for shows is a hard bridge to get them to cross.
Yeah, it didn't go
And
over particularly well.
yeah, it's like we're completely upending our business model, and the way we're going to launch that upended business model is a sequel to the Karate Kid series, 30 years, almost 40 years later.
Yeah.
It's a weird choice.
Admittedly, it was quite a good series. I'm only 7 episodes in.
Okay, good.
But, I mean, I've only been back from the Arctic for, 3 days.
So yeah, honestly, pretty impressive rate you're burning through these episodes. I watch everything at ×3 speed, so obviously I watch things considerably faster than you do.
Yeah, you're history's greatest monster, we know.
Famously, yeah. No, people tell me that more than you would imagine, and you would imagine it happens a lot. Yay, I finally found a lamp. This place is very dark. Yes.
My first take on this is apparently wrong.
Okay.
My wife has informed me that Ralph Macchio is not, in fact, the villain.
No, he's not. No, Ralph
he's
Macchio is not. And actually, the film does the show does something very interesting. In that it tells you, we have this whole scene, which you saw, where Johnny tells the whole story from his point of view, right?
Yeah.
About this kid showing up and stealing his girl and, causing a ruckus at school, doing an illegal kick to beat him at a tournament. And Johnny has a couple of points to make. And the interesting thing is, if you leave out one thing Johnny did, then I can see how Johnny might be able to think of himself as the good guy. And in his retelling, Johnny does leave out something that he did, which is when Ralph Macchio's character, and this is before Halloween when he pulled that prank on him, the prank was retaliation for Johnny instigating things by him and a group of his friends in vehicles coming up and chasing Ralph Macchio on a bicycle and running him off a cliff.
Oh, he is kind of a dick.
Yeah, he conveniently...
No, I meant Ralph Macchio.
No, he's not. His immediate move to attempted murder is what made Johnny the bad guy in the movie. And it's I think, a knowing statement by Johnny in the TV show that he has edited that part out of his memory. That he is the one who instigated and constantly escalated things. It was never Ralph Macchio's character, Daniel LaRusso, who ever escalated things or initiated things. Everything he did was in response to something shitty that Johnny had done.
Oh no, it sounds pretty clear cut that he was kind of shitty. They were both kind of shitty. But...
Oh, they were both. But Johnny was the instigator and Johnny was the escalator. And Johnny has edited that out of his memory, which I completely believe that character would do. Like, I find that to be an authentic point of view from that character, to have edited out the part of the story where he's the bad guy. Because that's what human beings do.
Yep.
They edit out the part of the story where... And it's like, you'll tell a story about how horribly you were treated, at the bank, or at work at the bank, or whatever, and you leave out the part where you did something unbelievably shitty to set off that sequence of events.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what Johnny is doing in the show. And the thing is, he does it so effectively that someone like you watching it could honestly, and with no question, watch this episode, these 7 episodes of television, and remember Johnny as being, and imagine that Johnny was the good guy all along.
I would say he's the good guy, but he's the least douchebag. You have 2 really big douchebags. I'm like, oh, kind of don't like anyone now.
Oh, that's terrible.
The Wiener Kid is not bad.
Yes.
But I have to be more specific since all the kids in the show are wieners.
They really are. That is an issue with the show.
Mm-hmm.
No, but he's not terrible. And I think we can all love Mohawk Kid.
Yeah. I'm like, yeah, no, he did. Yeah. Johnny's doing good.
Yeah.
And Ralph, or Daniel LaRusso, is bankrupting small business owners who also happen to be people of color just to try and get at Johnny.
Yeah. It's not a cool thing to do. But the thing is, and what I like about the show is, it totally acknowledges. It's not like being nice for him. He's doing this because he's mad at Johnny, and they just keep escalating things. Although I gotta say, the show is doing a nice job of being like how this kind of immature gamesmanship can easily get away from you.
Mm-hmm.
Like you want to do something to get back at somebody. And then it just escalates and escalates and escalates. I mean, without anyone consciously trying to make it a lot worse. It just gets a lot worse. And I think the show is very knowing in the way it presents that. Like, it's not like they think it's not like the show thinks anyone is making good decisions.
That said, we start with the conceit that the good guy, Johnny,
yeah,
his life has been shambles since he's been a teen.
Yeah.
He's kind of been, he's had a rough go.
He has.
Cool. And he's coming from a place of a lot less, shall we say, privilege than Daniel LaRusso, who has, like, a good job, a fat, stupid kid that I want to throttle.
You hate that kid.
Yeah, I really do hate that kid.
Okay, continue.
But just generally,
yeah,
Daniel LaRusso's life has been blessed in every way, and Johnny's has been like, well, I had a shitty divorce, and I developed a drinking problem, and all that, and you're like, okay, so him doing something good is a change, but he has to overcome a lot to do anything good.
And of course, the big reversal is that, what do you call it? Daniel LaRusso, right? Of course, came from almost nothing. And Johnny was a rich kid in that part of town who was one of the rich snobs who bullied all of the poor kids like Daniel LaRusso, whose mother literally just, like, was a single mother. They had no money. They had to fly out, like, they had to move from New Jersey so that she could get a not even that great job in California, right?
I spilled the bucket.
Oh, it happens.
Yeah,
you can clean that up with just 3 swipes of the mop, as I've learned time and again, right? And so what he did was, and then he befriended Mr. Miyagi, and that's the plot of the first 3 movies. And then clearly what happened after that was after Mr. Miyagi died, he left what little possessions he had, which, was a not completely paltry sum of money, but an okay sum of money. And Daniel, parlayed that into a mini empire of running a car dealership.
Yeah.
Yeah. And whereas Johnny, as you can see, all of his money came from the fact that he had an unbelievably dirtbag stepfather, Ed Asner, who I really enjoy. I really like seeing Ed Asner in this as his scumbag stepfather. And I think that's part of why the show is so mature, is that it lets you see that, yeah, Johnny was a complete scumbag in the first movie. And he was a jerk to everybody, but he was mirroring learned behavior. Because he went from this horribly abusive stepfather to John Kreese's Cobra Kai, which is just such a nightmarishly toxic environment.
Yeah, it seems like a bit of a lateral move.
Strike hard, no mercy. And he literally, like, John Kreese is just as bad as his stepfather, but the problem is, okay, could you do me a huge favor? I put together a garbage bin full of stuff.
Yep.
Could you pick it up and bring it, because it's your server? Everything's going to fly everywhere if I try to pick it up.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you could just... There you go.
Anyways.
It still has a little... Yeah. And of course, the difference between his stepfather and John Kreese is his stepfather has told him his whole life that he's always going to be worthless and a loser. Whereas John Kreese is all about telling people that they can be as tough as he is. So it's like he gives them something to strive for and something to aspire to, whereas the stepfather is just a scumbag.
Yeah.
And, say what you will about John Kreese and Cobra Kai. Yes, at least he's giving people Like, at least he's trying to get people to improve themselves. Although the problem is it's his idea of improvement, which is pretty questionable.
That said, in the show, Johnny,
in his rebuilding Cobra Kai.
Yeah, he seems to not quite understand why people aren't as hard as they were in the 80s.
I know.
It's like he's lost 20 years of lived experience.
I know. 20, 30 years of lived experience. Yeah, he's just like, why isn't everyone, hard? Like, everybody used to love this kind of wanton violence. Yes, because he teaches a kid to become, to have a elaborate kung fu battle inside a cafeteria.
Yeah, I have to say the martial arts aren't the greatest.
No, they're not fantastic, but I think they're okay. Even if they're okay. But one of the problems is I think they're very movie. Like, one of the things you can say about the original was it actually provided a pretty good depiction of what karate was like and what karate tournaments were like. It was not fantastical, flipping, elaborate kicks and sweeps karate that you will see in this show or in most movies. Like, it was not dramatic. It was, pretty much what karate is like. Restrained punches and kicks, hold, simple throws. Like, it was a pretty... Like, if you watch the first 3 movies, you will see people doing the kind of stuff that you learn to do in karate, not the kind of stuff you learn to do in stunt performer school.
Yeah.
Whereas the kind of stuff in this show tends to be more towards the stunt performer kind of martial arts. Which, again, is fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but it is a less grounded show than the original movies.
Yeah. But
I think that's just the passage of time. But yeah, like, you really do. I found myself genuinely liking Johnny the more I watched the show, because he really is just trying his best, and he doesn't have a lot of options or skills or resources.
He really has nothing going for him.
No. Well, he's got that car, but then he loses the car.
That happens in the first episode, yo.
I know. All he had going for him was a super sweet ride. And then in the first episode, some drunk girls wreck his super sweet ride.
I know. Gotta say, so far, some of the less wienery kids and Johnny have, my support.
Yeah, and I mean...
But only some of the less wienery ones.
Well, oh god. You can't stop from taking a shot at the new Cobra Kai kids. Oh, but the fact is, it's like, they really do a good job of building up the underdog narrative with the new Cobra Kai kids. Right?
That's true.
I think that's one of my favorite parts of the show, is that not all of them, they don't all have something to do, because there are a bunch of the background kids who don't really do much, but I think the vast majority of those Cobra Kai kids, they really do a good job of vignetting the way that, like, these are kids who don't have it together and aren't popular and don't have, like, a real place in the social hierarchy of the school, and they need something to make them feel good about themselves, and boom, karate's gonna be what does that for them. And the only question is, can Johnny make sure that's a positive influence, or is he just using that to relive his own childhood stuff?
Well, I don't see him reliving much of it, because he's got Miguel, who's, who was totally unlikable in the first episode or 2. Maybe you should let that go.
Yeah, I'm trying. There we
go. And, becomes actually likable as he's grows into not being a doormat.
I know. And the interesting thing about Miguel's character, and this you won't get because you didn't watch the original film, is that Miguel, in the situation he is with the single mother, with the, being bullied at school, with being a doormat, he is essentially the show's analog for what Daniel LaRusso was like in the first, in the movie, right? And the fact that Johnny is a handyman now, and he becomes this kid's mentor, is supposed to exactly mirror the fact that handyman Miyagi is the one who taught Daniel how to stick up for himself and become a more, well-rounded person over the course of the first movie. And that is the whole premise of the the whole premise of the show, and again, this is mirroring that you don't get, is that Johnny has become Mr. Miyagi over the course of this 10 episodes. The difference, of course, being Mr. Miyagi was a guy who had mostly put his huge problems behind him, whereas Johnny is still dealing with all of his huge problems. Mr. Miyagi didn't have to go through a giant arc while helping Daniel. He was mostly there to help Daniel and go through a bit of arc because Daniel becomes the son he never had because his wife died in childbirth. Whereas Johnny and Miguel are going through this arc together in the show because they have more time to, they have 5 hours to tell this story as opposed to the only 90 minutes that the original had. So there's more room for both characters to get complete arcs, which I won't spoil for you because you haven't finished the show.
Yeah. That said, I mean, it took me a while to get to like Miguel.
I get that.
The only person I like, there's 2 people in the show I liked right off the bat.
Yeah.
That's like Johnny.
Yeah.
And the black chick.
Yes. Yes. No, she's a ton of fun.
Miguel kicks her in the stomach and she like body slams him. I'm like, yep.
Nope.
You're my favorite now.
Yeah. She's not putting up with any of that nonsense.
None of it. Yep.
No, you gotta respect her for that. No, that's a great scene. But yeah, and like, because that's the whole premise of the show, is the way they are mirroring like what Ralph Macchio went through when he was a kid with what Miguel is going through now. And Ralph Macchio, without realizing it, has become the bad guy he hated, like the snob bad guy he hated when he was a kid. And he doesn't want to think he has, right?
But he is. And I mean, that's going to be, I think, what his arc is doing in season 2, which I haven't watched yet. So, as a side note, I think that Johnny is already a more successful Mr. Miyagi because he has more than one student.
Well, Mr. Miyagi wasn't trying to run a school, I think, is the big difference. It's like, Mr. Miyagi did not judge his success in how much he built up Miyagi-style karate. That wasn't something he was trying to achieve. So, I think Mr. Miyagi's success was getting Daniel LaRusso to stand up to Johnny Damon and become a more, well-rounded person.
A more well-rounded bully.
He is not a bully.
He's totally a bully on the show.
Well, yes, he is now, but he wasn't then. He has grown into
I don't know.
being a bully.
I'm kind of looking at how he's acted now, and I'm like, maybe he was always a dick.
Again, I think between the 2 seasons, we should probably have you watch The Karate Kid so you can contextualize this. Like, it's amazing listening to the opinions of someone who has no familiarity with the source material. Yeah. But yeah, and I totally see how, because this is told from Johnny's point of view, you feel that way. But that is less. You are creating a situation where this has less complexity than the show actually has. There is more going on than at first blush you would think, because you are just, for the most part, hearing Johnny's side of the story.
I don't know. Because, I mean, Ralph Macchio just kind of a dick. He walked in, he stole somebody's girl.
That's not true. They had
legal kick.
They had broken up over the summer. So again, Ralph Macchio is right about that.
And what about the illegal kick?
Stalkery stuff. The illegal kick is less defensible. But Johnny had done a bunch of illegal stuff to try and cripple him earlier in the match. So turnabout is fair play. Isn't it weird that this entire show exists because of an episode of How I Met Your Mother?
I did not know that.
You didn't know that? Oh
no.
My! Okay, so there's an episode of How I Met Your Mother where they are planning Barney's birthday, and the thing he wanted for his birthday, right, was to have the hero of the Karate Kid, to finally meet the hero of the Karate Kid, his favorite movie from when he was a kid, and so they get and so for another reason that's not important, a clown is there to help them celebrate the party, right? And so they have Ralph Macchio come to meet him, and in the episode in the episode, they have Barney explain that that Ralph Macchio is not the star of the Karate Kid. It's obviously Johnny, William Zabka's character, who,
Yep.
and then he goes through the list of Johnny's grievances, right? You know, culminating the fact that he lost to an illegal kick in the face and why. And then, of course, the punchline of the episode is that the clown that's been there the entire time was, in fact, William Zabka, who is happy that someone finally gets the Karate Kid and that it's really his story.
That's pretty amazing.
I know, it's an amazing episode, and then the payoff is the two of them actually started thinking, you know, we could just continue telling Johnny's story, because it's pretty interesting. And yeah, they had the reunion on that episode of How I Met Your Mother, and then soon after started developing this show.
I didn't realize they wrote it as well.
Oh, no, they just developed it with people, right? They just developed it with actual writers.
Well,
But
that
it was
said,
with the input of the both of them, who wanted to go back to playing these characters and catch up with them X amount of time later.
I do have good news.
Ooh.
Through the rumor mill,
Yes.
the Star Trek rumor mill, I have learned that Discovery will not be going past the 3rd season.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah.
Which
Which
they needed
means-
to stop it. They're going to have room for a new Star Trek show.
Yep, which means
Yeah.
Section 31.
Worth checking into.
CBS, call me. I'm much easier to get along with than Kurtzman.
Oh.
I
Kurtzman
promise
doesn't
Anson
know
Mount
what
won't
he's
punch
doing.
me in the face.
You're going to be too busy fawning over him for him to ever get a chance to punch you.
Oh, there's that.
No, he is the best, though. Yeah, and it's interesting, and I'll be interested, like, because we'll come back and we'll talk about this again after we've both seen Season 2. And
Yeah.
we'll address some of the Season 1 stuff that we didn't get a chance to talk about here, because you didn't get to the end. But what I love is that, like, so the difference is, I think one of the big difference between Pat Morita's character in the first one and Johnny in this one, is that, of course, Pat Morita did not have a kid, and he was so heartbroken by experiences of war that he kind of gave up on life and just sleepwalked? How do you say that? He was sleepwalking
Sleepwalked.
through life. Yes, he
Yeah.
sleepwalked through life until, right, he found someone that he could help, and he found purpose again, and that's the plot of the Karate Kid. Whereas by
Find some weird
comparison,
wiener kid to turn into
Yeah.
a bully? Okay.
that's exactly
That's-
what he did. And by comparison, Johnny, and this is what the show does over and over, points out again, Johnny's got a son that he could try and make things right with. Right? He's got a kid that he could try and make things right with. He has this son who he's been a bad father to for all of the son's life. And if he wanted to...
Been a
he could
bad
put in-
father. I think that kid is just shitty.
Keep watching the show. But the point is, he's been kind of a shitty dad the whole time, and on some level, right, he is going to, with this other kid, have the father-son relationship that he wanted to in the first place with his own son, but he doesn't have to deal with all the baggage of already having screwed up relationship. Like, it's a fresh start with this new son figure. In the same way that Mr. Miyagi got that in the first Karate Kid, but the difference is, you know, Mr. Miyagi wasn't a shitty absentee father to his son. His child had died, and so he never had a chance to be a father, and this was finally his chance. Whereas Johnny had his chance, and he screwed it up, and now he's trying to make it right with a different kid. And you say,
Yeah.
and his son, as the show goes on, you will see, is not 100% down with that plan.
Well, I'd like to note that, I don't know, he really did push a shitty product in his kid. Like, if I had that stupid wiener kid who was like, yeah, Alexa, order me another PS Vita, I'd be like, you know what? He's ruined. All right, get me the shotgun. We're going to go. Come on, little Johnny.
Okay. Well, again, we're going to talk about this after you've seen the last 3 episodes of the season.
Come on outside.
Because
You're just a shitty human being.
when
You're
it
going to
comes
go
down-
on and do cultural studies in university, and I'm going to pay for it.
Because I think what it comes down to, and this is what you'll see, is that, like, the show is much more complicated than you would assume it would be, right?
Yeah.
Like, and it really is. It starts out, again, just with Johnny and just telling Johnny's story, and the longer the show runs, the more willing it is to say, yeah, everybody's got rough stuff going on, everybody's got problems they've got to work with, deal with, and everyone is living in denial of that to a certain extent. And I just broke the lamp, which I didn't know could happen. I have played this game for like 60 hours. I didn't know you could break lamps until this second. Weird. Alright. Uh-oh.
Smooth.
Gotta get a garbage bin in here. Oh, you've already got one. Yay!
Yep.
Nice.
But,
yeah, and I think that's why the show has impressed me so much. Whoa. Is its willingness to say, there's no easy good guy here.
Yeah.
You know, and to criticize the original Karate Kid for saying that Johnny was just a bad guy. He wasn't. He was a dick and he was a bully, but
it was a product of his environment.
Exactly.
And you didn't help because you're a dick.
Again, you have been completely, not brainwashed, but you have been completely convinced to Johnny's point of view because you have not heard Daniel LaRusso's point of view on the story.
That said,
yeah,
I don't know. I kind of feel like,
and also you haven't met John Kreese, who explains so much of this stuff.
But you know, it's like my opinion of Naomi from The Expanse.
Yeah, it's because you've seen the supplemental material and you know what scumbaggy stuff she's done in the past that they didn't really reveal in the show until the last episode of the 4th season that we just watched.
I know, and I told you she did some real shitbag things, but I don't think
you were right.
Yeah.
But I'm going to have a very different impression of her because I haven't read the books. Yeah, and you're absolutely right about that. Like, and that's part of the interesting choices they make when they're adapting. Of course, this is a little different because this show kind of assumes, and that's why, again, I am so fascinated by your take on this. Because this show, in the set, like, The Expanse is making a conscious choice, right?
Yeah.
Because they're not assuming people have read books. Right? They're fundamentally not assuming people have read these books if they're watching the show.
Yeah.
So they're making a choice in how they portray Naomi. And I think you're right that they are going very easy on her for those first 3 seasons and making you genuinely like this woman before they finally reveal.
Like, drop the hammer that she's an absentee mother. Actually, no, she's not even an absentee mother. She is a non-mother. She basically
abandoned her son because she was afraid of her
fanatic.
The father. Yeah, because she was afraid of what the father would do. And so she just fled. And she couldn't deal with the guilt of what she had done, over what she had done. So yeah, like you put all that together and Naomi's a real bad parent. Yeah. And the difference is with Cobra Kai, on one level or another, they are expecting you to have seen The Karate Kid. And that's why I'm finding your take so interesting, because it's all, the whole premise of the show is, okay, well, how did all of this look from Johnny's point of view? And when you watch it, you're like, that's the only point of view you've heard. So you have this completely different take than most people watching the show. Although I say most people, I think, you know, by now, more people have seen Cobra Kai than have ever seen not more people, because it was a popular movie for a long time, but I think of the cohort of people who've seen Cobra Kai, probably more people watched it first than watched The Karate Kid first overall. So yours may actually be the typical experience with this show at this point.
Huh.
Especially now that it's on Netflix and The Karate Kid isn't.
I thought it was. Oh, no, wait. No, that's a shitty remake.
Yeah, no, it's the Jackie Chan, Jaden Smith Karate Kid. Where they do kung fu because they don't care.
Yeah.
And also he's a child instead of a teenager. It's a very different movie.
It's an entirely different movie, apparently, because it's like, I saw that. I saw the Jackie Chan one. I'm like, this is not a good movie, but it's not...
Yeah.
Not the greatest, but it's not the worst thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And then I realized, I'm like, oh, it's communist Chinese propaganda.
Of course it is. Any movie made with Chinese money is, first off, it's not communist. It's just Chinese propaganda. And there ain't nothing communist about China. They
You're the
were
expert.
communist
I just kill them.
They were communist a long time ago. And then they started like selling stuff to the West, and now they're just like a brutal super capitalist state. Like, communism is long by the wayside in China. But it is Chinese propaganda, and I think anything with Chinese money in it is Chinese propaganda. It's one of the most, one of the most creepy things happening in Hollywood right now is you can't make giant blockbusters. Like, you can't expect to make all of the money with Chinese blockbusters, right? Without being able to release them in China. But the, totalitarian Chinese government won't let you send anything to China that isn't massively pro-Chinese. So even if you can't, even if you can't fit in a pro-Chinese message, they can't let you do anything even passively anti-Chinese, which is why a white lady played a Tibetan character in Doctor Strange.
Wait,
because, what? Yeah, a white lady played it in the guy who teaches Doctor Strange magic in the comic books is Tibetan.
I did not know that.
Yes, and they made it an Irish lady in the movie because China would not let them release a movie with a positive portrayal of Tibet in it.
That doesn't surprise me. I mean, they pulled that shit with Homeland and Homeland 2.
Yep, that's exactly what they did.
And that's that's most of how I know about it, because, I don't really follow entertainment news, but I was like, aw.
Yeah, it's pretty disgusting. Yeah, like when they, when they made the remake of Red Dawn, that was supposed to be about China invading America, and then after it was finished, the Chinese government got pissed about it and said, you can't release this in any place we have, in all of Asia. So they're like, okay, well, they could have released it in Japan and Korea, but the point is, China has a lot of control over markets there. And they have 1 billion potential people to watch the movie. So they're like, oh, let's, in post, completely re-edit this and digitally change everything so we're being attacked by North Koreans. As if North Korea is in a position to invade.
Like every communist state, they can't even feed their people. How are they going to launch an invasion?
I like that you say that, but Cuba has no problem feeding its people.
Yeah. Yeah, How'd feeding people under communism work out in Eastern Europe, China, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia? Not great.
Oh yeah,
25% plus of the population dying of famine.
That's true, but most of Africa was entirely regular democracies and capitalist societies, and they all starved too in the 70s and 80s. So
yes. Because everyone picked on Rhodesia. Rhodesia was the bread basket. And so once they cut off trade with Rhodesia, it's like 1/3 of the food in Africa was coming out of that place.
Yeah, and which raises the question, it seems like under capitalism, there's no good way to get money and food to people who can't afford it. So it's not like capitalism had a big solution for Africa starving throughout the 70s and 80s.
I'll give you this, my godless socialist friend.
Yeah.
Capitalist governments were at fault for that because they picked on Rhodesia. They isolated the only person who was feeding most of Africa, or rather, the only country who was feeding most of Africa, and was like, hey, yeah, you're not allowed to trade with anyone.
Oh, God. But yeah, it's interesting because this show is doing... it's doing its completely own thing with the overall narrative of Karate Kid. And that's why I'm interested for you to see Karate Kid second, because you will see how, again, so many rhyming elements, so many callbacks, stuff that you just interpreted as part of the narrative of this show are, actually references to scenes from the original movies.
Oh, it's raining body parts.
Oh no, from where?
There was a vent up there, and I started mopping at it, and
all of the body parts fell.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I find it very interesting, especially because the show really relies on building up a character,
Yeah.
and you will start hating most of them.
Mm.
Like Miggy is just a tool, essentially. He's
Yeah.
just a big old pussy. And as the show progresses, he becomes this more interesting, nuanced character. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I kind of want to know about him.
Yeah.
And like, same thing with Hawk.
Yep.
Or
Just starts off completely passive and terrible. Even Daniel's daughter gets better over the length of the show. Starts out insufferable, gets better and better over the length of the show.
yeah, I totally agree. And it's one of the show's real strengths.
Yeah.
The longer I watch it, the more my opinions of characters change, and
The more you kind of like these people. Kind of.
well, not Daniel LaRusso. Fucking really.
Well, again, you're not at the end of the season yet. I'm saying there's still time for this man to win you over. You don't know.
There probably is.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's the problem I had with certain parts of the Expanse.
Right.
Ashford eventually won everyone over.
Yeah, people love that Ashford.
He's two separate characters that were mashed together.
Right.
But, I mean, over the course of the series, he goes from being this obstinate pirate who wants to murder everything to being, this hero to being,
Yeah. Well, murdered by supervillains. But no, like, he comes around. He, like, sees that, like, we're not going to be... and what I loved about Ashford, right, was that he's like, yeah, I'm a pirate because that's the only option available to our people. Like, we have only... The only option we have to get forward in life is crime, right? And B, we recognize that it's because this is a position that the people... Okay, the thing's broken. Oh, wow, that's not good. This thing breaks a lot. Oh, yeah, here's the body parts you were talking about.
big old mess of body parts. Yeah.
Right? And so he's like, okay, but at some point he wakes up and he says, well, at some point, like, you're not going to be... If your rebellion works, if your plan works, you're not going to be the underdog anymore, right? And at that point, when you're not the underdog anymore, when you're in a position to make demands and make deals, do you keep trying to get revenge, or do you start trying to get, or do you start actually making those deals and coming up with a permanent solution that isn't just, we all keep killing each other forever.
Yeah.
And we know which side Naomi's ex is on.
Yes.
And we know which side Ashford is on. And Ashford takes a while to get there, but he eventually gets there, and that's why it's such a great character.
Well, you see it in parts, right? At the beginning of season 3, where he basically says, he gets on the behemoth, and he's like, "What up, gangstas?" And everyone's like, "What the fuck is he wearing?" He's like, "This is a uniform, and the more we work with the inners, the more we're going to have to wear them, because we need to..." They have it in their minds that we are all horrible pirates and criminals.
Yep.
I have nothing to do with this. But, that said, we need to at least show that we're willing to meet them halfway, and,
Yeah. And wearing a uniform is part of that. Like, it shows that we're part of an organization. We're not just a group of thugs, and what you say to one has nothing to do with what you say to another, and everybody, you're going to have to make a deal with 1,000 different guys. No, if you're part of an organization, the organization is an entity that can negotiate with a state.
Well, there's also the fact that wearing a uniform does... the laws of war as they currently stand.
Yeah.
If you're wearing a uniform,
you have specific rights.
You have specific rights and you have specific responsibilities, and you and your nation can be called to account for what you did while wearing that.
Yeah.
Right? It shows wearing a uniform by Ashford shows that you've got blood in the game.
Mm-hmm. But, I mean, as long as you all obey the rules of war, obviously.
Yeah. And you don't, say, drop things on people.
Yeah, as long as you don't, start, just for an example, firing asteroids at a planet, you should be fine.
Yeah. That said,
oh god,
this is how I'm seeing Cobra Kai develop, because they are wearing a uniform.
Yep.
And they are all signing up for the rules of this organization.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting to see, you've got his two main disciples. You've got Fatty and Miguel.
Yeah. You've got an interesting group of, what do you call it? You've got an interesting group of outcasts. Supporting characters.
Yeah. And they do grow on you because, the whole I'm not going to move, I'm not going to talk thing just kind of didn't work for Hawk.
Yeah.
And he does make a good point. Did you have to toss that?
Yeah, sorry about that.
That, in his own whack, lopsided way, Johnny's giving them good advice.
Yeah, he's getting them to a place they need to be. And the problem is, it's like, there is a lack of nuance to Johnny's lessons.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is a lack of nuance to Johnny. And there always has been. And you're going to see how that pays off in the next 3 episodes. But on the broad level, like, what he is giving them is, like, he has, what do you call it? He sees himself as someone who has been, I'm not saying it's like a cult leader. I'm saying that he is someone who has been transformed by a set of beliefs and a set of priorities, right?
A set of rules.
And he's like, yes, exactly. He has got rules to live by, and they have given him confidence, and they have, allowed him to take on the world. That's his, obviously, memory of it. They actually caused a lot of problems for him.
Yeah.
But they also gave him self-confidence, and self-confidence is what all of these kids lack. So it makes perfect sense that he would be able to... They could look at him and say, well, look at him. And yeah, he started off with a crappy storefront, but he's got it together. He's getting better he's getting better as a person. He's becoming more responsible. He's cleaning himself up. He's getting more confident. We can do that too. And he's showing them this guide. Like, he's showing them a path towards self-improvement. And whether that's toxic or not, well, that's something we'll discuss after season 2.
Yeah, I have a feeling there's going to be a downfall here.
But yeah, you see why it's attractive, right? And that's the key part, I think. Is like, you see why it's attractive for him and for them, whether or not in the end it's going to be the best thing for them. Because again, his student did get into a giant kung fu brawl in the middle of school.
He did seriously injure some athletes, which I will always applaud.
There you go. Take that, organized athletics that don't involve punching people.
Surprisingly, I did not have the best time in school as a wiener kid myself, who was like
it's not
6'4" and like 110 pounds soaking wet.
Oh no!
Not the best.
A toothpick, if you will.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And so, I still bear a lot of damage as a result.
Yeah. Well, no, that's what happens. And honestly, one of the things this show is about is how that damage sticks with you. It can be 20 years later, and this stuff still sticks with you. And
yeah, it's joining the army later. How about that?
A good way to get over that kind of thing, I suppose.
Yes. Yeah, well, mixed results.
Well, they will make you run until you forget all of your damage.
Yes.
And all the damage is left is your legs from running that long.
Contact your local recruiter.
Or just take up jogging. Pretty much, take up high-intensity jogging. You know what? Training for a marathon is 80% of what you get out of the military without all of the, ultra-nationalism and preparing you to kill people.
I'm not an ultra-nationalist. I'm more American nationalist than ultra nationalist
There you
Canada, which is kind of weird.
That is kind of strange, actually. Oh man, but yes. So yes, this has been our talk about Cobra Kai season 1, episodes 1 through 7. We're gonna come back and talk more about it after both of us have seen season 2. So that should be fun. I don't know where it's gonna go. I haven't watched season 2 yet because I only watched season 1 when it was on YouTube Red. But now I'm able to watch it whenever I want, and I will. And we are going to discuss this because I'm kind of excited to see where the story goes. And you'll see why when I get to the end of the first season. But hopefully I can inveigh upon you to actually sit down and watch The Karate Kid between season 1 and 2 or after season 2.
Yeah.
If not because I think it's going to change your mind about the characters, but because I think it's going to, in the same way that me, once I do it, reading all of the Expanse novels is going to give me this understanding of how that world has developed, right? And the changes they've made and why they've changed them.
I would recommend, since I know your attention span makes mine look incredible, sit down, read The Churn, which is a 85-page novella.
Yeah.
About Amos, which is the most important thing. If you're going to watch The Expanse, read this novella. You'll think.
So you can understand why Amos is the best character that's ever been on a TV show.
He is. And we're also getting season 5.
They announced season 5 before season 4 aired. Come on.
No, but
the richest man on Earth is a fan of The Expanse. As long as he stays a fan of The Expanse, they're going to keep making The Expanse.
Yes. But, no, season 5 finished principal shooting before the
plague started. Wow.
Yeah. So we are
no
getting
idea.
season 5 in, the next couple of months.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, same thing with Mandalorian season 2.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah, they shot it before the plague, so they are good to go. Yeah, it's finishing editing now, and I think it's end of October it's going to start airing. Right in time for everyone to dress as Mandalorian for Halloween. Because, face mask.
Well, yeah, it just makes life easier. It's a face covering if it's an entire helmet.
That's true. So, yes. Do you have any quiz you would like to give people before we get on going?
All right, what's our subject matter?
I was hoping, since we were so excited about Expanse coming back, you would have an Expanse quiz question for people.
Give me a second here. Okay. What is the name of Amos's one-armed friend?
Ooh. Deep cut from The Churn, I assume?
Yep.
Okay, everybody, you're going to be able to find that if you get The Churn. So literally, you could just buy a digital version of The Churn and search that within the Churn. And you know what? We're going to count that as a win, because then you will have bought a copy of The Churn, which is what this man wants you to do. So, you'll be playing right into his hands. But you'll be winning a game from me, so 100%. If you know the answer to that question, pop it into the comment section below the video, and boom, the prize is yours. We're going to be back here in a little over a week to talk The Boys, Season 1, which neither of us have seen all of, so we're going to zip through that, address it, because I've read every issue of the comic, so I can come at it from that angle. I don't know if you have.
I have not. I've only read the first volume.
Oh, okay.
And it is very different, but very good. It takes out everything I hate about Garth Ennis.
I really assumed they were going to have to change a giant amount to make it good, and people are telling me it's good, so I assume they've changed. As someone who's read every issue, I will be able to state, how much they've changed. Yeah. And I have to assume they've changed almost everything. And they've just kept the basic premise and characters. We'll see. I mean, we'll see, right? Yeah, we'll see. I'm pretty sure Jack Kirby's not going to show up on the TV show, but
give it time.
We'll see, right?
Hologram.
And if you watch, and this is a thing for the people listening to this as well as you, Gun Wrangler. If you get around to watching Karate Kid, right, and you enjoy yourself, consider watching Karate Kid 2 and 3. I'll tell you why. 2, 2 is mostly a story. I mean, Daniel LaRusso's in it too, and he has a little thing, he has a fight. But it's mostly just a story about Miyagi dealing with his past. So it's really more his sequel than it is Daniel's. And the third one is just there to close out the... do a trilogy, close out the story. They did a fourth one with Hilary Swank, and nobody saw it, and nobody cared. It was called The Next Karate Kid. But yes, the third one is interesting because it's not the best movie by any stretch of the imagination, but it has in it the best character in the franchise, Terry Silver. And I'm not going to tell you one word about Terry Silver, except to say that he is literally the best character in this franchise or almost any other franchise.
Hey.
So yeah, like, he is miraculous. Like, when you see Terry Silver, you're going to be like, yep, this guy he's the whole franchise all by himself. Why on earth would you not have just made 100 movies about Terry Silver? And I keep hope alive that there'll be a third season of this show, so maybe there's a chance we'll see Terry Silver again.
I do believe they did say that they're getting a third season.
Oh, okay. Thank heavens. So that should be good. But anyway, thanks for watching. There's buttons coming up if you want to hear more from me. We'll see you back here for talk about The Boys post-haste. But until then, I'm going to say au revoir.
Thug life.